I have the pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Stephen Elliott. He is a postdoctoral student with CGEST and has worked on many projects with the center, but currently is working on an NSF project that deals with education as it relates to NSF and ASU. So without further ado, Mr. Elliott.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. So my name is Steve. I am from the Center for Gender Equity in Science and Technology. We call it CGEST for short, and I'm going to throw that around a lot, so CGEST. And in keeping with today's lunch theme, my talk's really kind of an amuse-bouche for the main course that Dr. Camacho will be providing later. And so just to give you a kind of a preview of what I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to talk a little bit about a background and a driving question for my talk. Then I'm going to indicate some of the things that we've been doing within CGEST to help address this question. And then just give you a little sneak peek at some of our early results. And I'm going to talk about this notion of a hidden college that I've started developing as part of this project. So that's the roadmap. The background is this. So everybody here knows that institutes of higher education, funding agencies, independent research centers, they're increasingly starting to think about issues of inclusion, especially within STEM, and ASU is no different. In fact, in the first plank of the charter, there's the word includes, and people have interpreted it in different ways, but definitely the university ties this often to their 2005 diversity and inclusion plan. And most recently, we've developed at ASU the Office of Inclusion. So these kinds of things have us and at CGEST and other folks around ASU kind of thinking about this question. Well, who is it exactly at ASU that cares about issues of diversity and inclusion, particularly within STEM? In what units do they work, and on which campuses can we find them? So I'm kind of a sociologist of science for this project. So one of the things that I really care about is issues of reward systems. So up here when I say who at ASU cares, I don't just mean that they're kind of interested and want to know more. I'm interested in who's willing to tie these issues to their professional reward system. So chances for promotion, chances for pursuing things like grants, publications, all of those kinds of things. Okay, so how do I address these questions? Well, the first thing that we did is we got 3 databases of sets of individuals that we thought had prima facie reason to be interested in issues of diversity and inclusion, specifically within STEM. So the first one comes out of this STEAM plus H project that started in 2006. It was a partnership between CGEST and Center for Biodiversity and Outcomes. Basically they were kind of interested in the same question. Who cares about these issues and how can we get them together as a group? This STEAM plus H project met for a little bit more than a year. It kind of morphed, and some things petered out, and some things kept going. And actually, these equity exchanges are one of the things that are the offspring. I have biological training. I'm sorry, so I have a lot of biological metaphors. But within that, there was a listserv of folks that they would email pretty regularly. And so we took all of that information. We also combined it with a database that we got from Knowledge Enterprise Development. About a list of grants from folks that had submitted applications that had been coded as in some way related to inclusion or diversity. We had this over a 5-year period, but it ends in 2016, so that's an limitation of that data. And then finally in CGEST, our PI and Center Director, Dr. Tim Scott, had just had kind of an internal ad hoc list going over the course of 4 or 5 years of various folks she'd been keeping track of. So we started with these 3 databases, and we smushed them together and we made a big database. And if we just look at it really quick, there was just under 4,000 names. We knew that the database was likely not accurate. It had lots of duplicates, lots of things that people had left the campus, lots of bad information. So we spent a lot of time cleaning the database. And this section of what I'm talking about gets this one little animation on my slides today, but it's 90% of what we've been doing, right? So I want to give a special thanks to these folks who have really been carrying kind of the hard burden here, especially these 2 undergraduate researchers, Addie Kang and Rina Karnawian, have really done a lot of heavy lifting here. So we had to go through, we had to update the names of lists, we had to find where people were actually affiliated, despite where they said they were affiliated. We had to find their websites, their email addresses, all that contact info. And then we get a nice kind of ultimate spreadsheet to rule them all here at the end. It has just under 700 names of folks at ASU. Okay, so if you're like me, you actually like to see the spreadsheets. So I'll give you a sneak peek. So here's our list of people. You can see we have first names, last names. I blocked everybody out to protect the innocent. And then their department, their directory URL, their email address, and a rough list of some of their research interests. I'll talk about the other columns here in a little bit. So some quick summary stats on this database. The ultimate thing is we have 693 folks at ASU that we have some prima facie reason to believe are interested in issues of diversity and inclusion in STEM at ASU, which was kind of a surprisingly high number from my perspective. We broke them down into these 5 groups: professors, anybody on the TT line, research and teaching faculty, emeriti, high-level administrators. These are deans, associate deans, etc. And then administrators are just all kind of any other staff. And you can see we can break them down. We have 519 tenure track faculty who we have reason to believe are interested in these topics. And then if we're looking at West, we have 22. 500 at Tempe, that's to be expected because it's such a massive campus. If you like a graph breakdown, that's what it looks like over there with each of the different campuses and each of the different colors representing different kinds of folks. Okay, so this helps us answer our first question, or the first part of that question, which was who at ASU cares about issues of diversity and inclusion in STEM? Now we had to start answering the second and third aspects of that question. In what units do they work, and at which of the campuses? And you all know, ASU is a bureaucratic beast. There's all sorts of different colleges and schools. There's schools within schools. There's departments within schools, within colleges. And so tracking all of that can be kind of maddening, made worse by the fact that it seems every single one of these units has changed their name in the last 3 years at some point, right? So data that we have from 2016 can be 2 unit names ago. And so we had to create a controlled vocabulary. The other thing is, eventually what we wanted to do was visualize where all these folks were. And we're used to looking at an ASU map that looks something like this. This is supposed to be gold instead of that mustard yellow. This is green down here for Poly, orange for Phoenix, even though it looks kind of brown there, and then maroon for Tempe. But if we tried to put all of that information on one of these geographic maps, it's just going to look messy, right? We're not going to be able to pull out all of the fine information that we want to pull out. So that was the second limitation that we were dealing with. So the first thing that we had to do was we had to come up with a controlled vocabulary for the ASU units as they currently stand today. And so that's what we did. For all of the relevant units, not all of the units, but for all the ones in which we could place somebody, we went through and created a controlled vocabulary of, I think we have 80 or so units. That's what we did here. And over here, what we did is their parent unit. So which unit are they most closely nested within? Right, so if you're in American Indian Studies here, you're a member of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. And then if you scroll down long enough over here, you'll eventually get to the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, and that'll be part of the Tempe campus. And then if you come over here, you can see ASU Tempe, and it's actually part of ASU. So in this way, we can get kind of a nested structure of the whole university bureaucracy, for lack of a better term. So then what we could do is we could do the same thing with people. We could give each person an individual number. And then we could also come over here and use that controlled vocabulary to go through and correct for everybody's primary affiliation. And then we could give the appropriate number for their affiliation. At that point, here's where my biology training comes in again. We have this great database that has all of this information. Everything's appropriately nested within the database, but you can't, as a human, see it, right? And so we want to give a network visualization of that. I'm using this tool Cytoscape that was used by molecular biologists to actually represent molecular interactions within cells, but it's actually really great for visualizing social networks and institutional networks as well. So again, think about this map, think about these colors for these different campuses. And we're going to try and keep some of the structure of these relationships, but we're going to get away from the geographic map and we're going to move into a network space map. So here we have the same colors. ASU West is up here. ASU Downtown is this kind of brownish thing. ASU Tempe still coming through in the maroon. And ASU Polytechnic in the green. So these are the campuses. ASU's in the middle. It's kind of a pinkish color to indicate that it's an institution that exists at many geographical locations. So then the next thing that we do is we put those independent colleges and schools, right? So at the ASU West campus up here, we have the new College for Interdisciplinary Arts and Sciences, right? We also have a little bit of the College of Nursing and Health Innovation. Mary Louise Fulton Teachers College is right in the middle because it's kind of at all the campuses. And then we can do that for all of the colleges and freestanding schools throughout all of the campuses. So then what we want to do is we want to display their subunits. And then ultimately what we want to be able to do is attach the people to their, the units that they're appropriately affiliated with. So that's what we do here. So there's a lot going on here, and we'll break it down in a little bit. But again, we have that same box structure for ASU. And then all of the color-coded colleges, all of the color-coded highest level schools and colleges with the campuses, and then their subunits, and then the little blue dots around each of the units are the people. So this is a fun little nifty tool. It's a lot to take in all at once, so let's look at some of the campuses individually. Here's ASU Polytechnic. Often you'll see up here, sometimes I call it a paw print, sometimes I call it a snowman, sometimes I call it a cactus. But there's this University College, the Graduate College, and the Barrett Honors College. Those are at every single campus all the time. Right? So that's why they're just kind of up there in pink. Poly has the College of Integrative Sciences and Arts, the W.P. Carey School, and the Iris A. Fulton Schools of Engineering. You can see we have folks that are clustered around CISA, a lot of folks clustered around the Polytechnic School. That's the engineering school on the Poly campus. And then a few folks clustered around the Morrison School of Agribusiness. If we look at Tempe, I'm just going to show one aspect because Tempe is kind of a big deal. So I'm just going to show class. And you know, if class was its own geographic unit, it would be any bigger than any unit at ASU. It's just got that much going on. And in there, you can't really see it on this map, but there's some nice breakdown of, there's the units within class in terms of the humanities, the social sciences, and the natural sciences as well. And then again, just all of these people. Here's the downtown campus. Again, we see lots of folks who are interested from the College of Health Solutions, lots of folks from the College of Nursing and Health Innovation. That's what we'd expect from the downtown campus. And some fewer people from the more professional schools. Here's ASU West. So here we have the new College of Interdisciplinary Arts and Sciences. And this is kind of an old map. I've kind of changed my mind on this. So here we have the Mary Louise Fulton Teachers College in the bottom left. And you can see it can kind of connect up to the Division of Education, Leadership, and Innovation. At one point I was categorizing that as the West Campus, but Mary Lou Fulton has confounded my ability to try to color coordinate it and do the right size. So I don't think I'm going to do that in the future. And if there's anybody here from MLF, I would really love some input on understanding the structure of that college. But really what we also have are sharps up here at the top, social and behavioral sciences below it, and then mathematical and natural sciences. And I know you can't see it, but here's Dr. Camacho. Okay, so at this point, what do we have? We have two things. The first is we have a database that if you're a computer or a nerd like me and really like interacting with databases, you can go through and you can find folks. But we also have this nice visualization scheme. If you're playing with it in Cytoscape, you can zoom in, you can zoom out. I'm working on hyperlinking everybody's iSearch pages to their individual nodes. So what we have are two kind of nifty, useful tools that folks at ASU might like to have. It'll help you find, if you're on one campus, folks who maybe aren't in your discipline but are still interested in issues of inclusion in STEM, but are maybe in other colleges. And then if you're on one campus and you're interested in finding people in your same field, you can find those folks on the other campuses as well. So these provide some kind of interesting, first-run search tools. But when I look at this, it makes me start thinking about something else. And here I'm starting to think about this idea of an invisible college. So the idea of an invisible college started and was actually originally applied to this group. This is a woodcut of an early meeting of the Royal Society of London. And so these are all the naturalists at the time. They're not necessarily affiliated with universities. They're spread throughout the kingdom. They come together a couple times a year for a meeting, but then they spread back throughout, and they really keep in touch by sending letters to each other, by sending manuscripts to each other, and this is how we start to get our first scientific journals. But you can also see it's all a bunch of stuff, you old white guys. There's Newton in the middle, looking really upset that he has to hang out with these people he thinks are lower than him. So social scientists still use this idea of an invisible college, but it's kind of morphed to deal with more of what's going on in research today. Really what people are looking at now is they try to identify invisible colleges as things that are at the very forefront of research. And so they look at journal articles that have a lot of similar topics in common, that are citing each other, and they try to find clusters of folks that are really talking with each other that you wouldn't necessarily know because they're spread throughout the world. And so that's what Alessia Zakala, she's at University of Copenhagen, she's kind of got the going definition in the literature right now. And she defines an invisible college as a set of interacting scholars or scientists who share similar research interests, produce publications, communicate both formally and informally, work towards important goals on those issues, even though they're geographically distant from each other. So I think this is a useful concept and a useful idea, but I don't know, when I look at the ASU map, it doesn't really quite capture how I see this potential college on ASU currently existing. So I want to propose a kind of a new concept that's really just rearranging some of the other stuff and putting a slight kind of modifier into what she says. So I'm proposing this idea of a hidden college, or a nascent college, if you prefer. And this is a set of scholars or scientists who share similar research interests, and despite being potentially geographically distant, but maybe even formally affiliated, for instance, everybody at the different ASU campuses, but they're all part of ASU, they have this underused or maybe still developing capacity to communicate formally and informally with each other, to collaborate towards important goals, and to produce relevant grant applications, publications, community outreach, all the kinds of things that you would normally think a college produces. And so when I look at this, I think I see a little bit more of a hidden college than an invisible college. And one of the things that we'll see with Dr. Camacho's talk is often at ASU it seems like we make steps to being more of an invisible college that deals with diversity and inclusion, but then sometimes we take a few steps back as well. And with Dr. Camacho's talk, we'll be saying about one of the steps forward with the new advanced grant that we have here at ASU. That's really exciting. And kind of my interest is in seeing how ASU can continue to kind of keep going in that direction. We get so caught up, I think, in the geography of the university and then within the kind of bureaucratic infrastructure that sometimes we forget there's 693 folks. And it's easier, I think, to see black and white. 693 folks at ASU spread throughout all of these locations and in all of these different units that care about diversity and inclusion, in particular within STEM. I think that's something that's really got a lot of potential and power behind it. And so it's trying to figure out how do we as a university utilize that. So that just kind of leads me to some open-ended questions that I don't have the answers for, but I'm interested to hear from you all about your ideas about this kind of stuff. What's next for this group of people? Is ASU moving from kind of a hidden college to an invisible college? Are we already at an invisible college? And how do we feel about training ASU itself into a laboratory for issues of inclusion in higher education? I don't have the answer. But then there's this next step too. moving from an invisible college, as Professor Zakala defines it, to something maybe even a little bit more robust or concrete. I'm not necessarily saying it has to be brick and mortar, but what would its features be? Do we want more than just a kind of standard invisible college? And if so, what do we want it to do at the university? And most importantly, how can we take this huge power of almost 700 folks and use that to really impact university policies, especially when it comes to tenure and promotion, recruiting and retaining faculty of color, women faculty, and so forth. Just things to be thinking about, and I think that this idea of a hidden college provides a little bit of a conceptual framework around which to frame some of those questions. So before I get off the stage, you might be interested to be in further iterations of our network, and if so, we'd love to have you on. So we have this little diversity and inclusion survey. If you're interested, it takes 2 minutes to fill out. You can get to it via 2 ways. You can come to our website. This is the hard way. You can come to our website, you can click on Knowledge, you can click on STEAM plus H Scholars Pathway, and then you can find the Diversity and Inclusion Survey. But don't be confused by clicking on Survey, because that's not the right survey. So if you're a visual person, this is how you get there. But if you just want to share this with other folks, it's this bit.ly address right here.
Steve,
Mm-hmm.
I think it might be really fantastic if you could at least send to the participants not only that, but also like the fancy blurb.
Sure.
And then it's a lot easier for us to circulate to our colleagues who might be interested in participating. Because I agree, the first method looks horrible.
Yeah. Drupal. Thank you. So I'm not going to take any questions right away. Dr. Camacho will get up and she'll introduce the advanced grant. And then we'll do a shared question and answer afterwards. Before I get off the stage, some quick acknowledgments again to all of these folks for the really hard work and impressive work that they did in helping to clean that database. And to the NSF who's funding me to work with these ideas of hidden colleges both within ASU, but I'm also studying the NSF and how they see these kinds of institutions. So thank you for listening.
Year as the other co-PIs, as well as Erin Carr Jordan as one of the leading people, who's the director of online operations, who's really helping us bring this to a new innovative approach. So one of the things that we really want to do, we want to be able to transform the institution, but we want to take a very innovative approach so that we could reach far and beyond and be able to really bring the training and the opportunities to various individuals that might not otherwise have it. So how are we going to be able to transform the institution? Well, we had to hone in and 3 things that we are really going to try to do, 3 initiatives. One of them is to ensure that faculty and administrative procedures are recruiting, promotion, evaluation, retention, explicitly address how to improve equity, diversity, and in the disciplinary structures. And what I want to say is because ASU is a very interdisciplinary kind of environment and is really pushing for that, right? Yet we don't have some of the structures in place to be able to properly advance individuals that are very interdisciplinary, because we're still operating under traditional environments in some cases. And in some other cases, we just don't have certain resources available, right, for some of the individuals. Another one of the initiatives is to provide appropriate and accessible professional development and mentoring opportunities for STEM women and members of underrepresented groups across the entire academic life course. So what we're going to be targeting certain processes of the academic life course, we're going to make professional development opportunities available to everyone so that everyone could be able to benefit from it. And the third initiative, which is really exciting, is great, and that's really like the thing that puts all the pieces together, is to design and implement, evaluate digital administrative systems to be able to monitor equity. Very, very broad and big initiatives, and each initiative aims to consider how the intersectional dynamics affect and are affected explicitly by an interdisciplinary environment at ASU and through the entire academic course, right? And by intersectional, we mean the ways in which faculty experience are shaped by gender, race, ethnicity, economic status, foreign-born status, sexual orientation, disability, rank, discipline, and many other things, right? And how those experiences influence the opportunities for career advancement and leadership opportunities throughout their career, right? And one of the things that we really want to focus is in all those intersectional identities of an individual, a professor, that either influence in a positive way or in a negative way their advancement, right? For example, here we have a very cool picture created by the co-PI Monica Gang. And what I want, and it's a picture that shows how the different identities, such as family, socioeconomic status, gender, race, nativity, language, all of those intersect to really define that individual, and how those things could be basis of social inequality, right? And it's just by the way that certain structures, right, end up leading for advancement or lack of advancement for that individual. And so here, for example, so it's not that having all these identities and all these interactional identities that influence and shape your experience are bad. It's just that it depends on, for some people, it's more beneficial than to others. So here is an example of two different individuals, right? One here we have the model American professor, right? High socioeconomic status, male, non-Hispanic, native born, native English speaker, and that defines that professor. And then here you have someone that is more unusual and rare, kind of like someone like me, low socioeconomic status, women, Hispanic, second generation, English as a second language. And the intersection of those identities that were shaped by my experiences define who I am, right? And scientific evidence shows that actually the professor here in the left, right, is more likely to succeed in a variety of scientific indicators, such as publications, productivity, professional advancement, salary, citations, funding that the person will get, as well as the networks that they would build in terms of industry and government that would be able to further promote them. And know that both of these professors have a collection of intersections that really define who they are. It just happens that for this professor, that happens to be advantageous as opposed to this professor, right? And so one of the things that Advance is trying to do is to mitigate the lack of advantages that might happen to certain professors because of the intersectional identities and how that shapes their experience. And eventually, so that we could, as an organization, be able to eliminate it, right? Eliminate that lack of equitable opportunities for some individuals. And like I said before, this is really a team approach. It's really composed of many, just stupendous and great individuals that have a lot of experience and they come from a lot of different backgrounds that have many different perspectives. And we're really leveraging on that breadth. So I'm so glad that Dr. Steve Elliott said there's almost 700 individuals that we could count on, and we're leveraging on every single one of them. So that little sheet that you're signing up for, and not that you're signing up for your life, but I'm going to be contacting you because I really want to be able to reach out to your expertise, and we want to be able to leverage on what you have to offer, not just from your experience, but your perspective on how can we make things better, and your time and your contributions, right? So we have various teams that we have created. We have the institutional transformation team led by co-PI Lily Wentz. We have the social science research team, which is really looking into the social aspects of how this intersectional dynamics and also the being in an interdisciplinary environment affects the progression of various faculty members. And that's being led by Monica Gan, co-PI, the social science team. And then we have an administrative accountability team led by co-PI Laura Dane. And that's where we're working together with Initiative 1 and Initiative 3, right, to be able to put those structures in place to make sure that outcomes are being successful. And then we have the digital platform team led by Phil Reggie, and also with the help of Erin Carr-Jordan. And that's really a key aspect of innovation in our approach, because they're working very closely with the team that I'm leading, the professional development team, to really bring this trainings and professional development live in a digital world where everyone will have access to them at any given time, so just in time training. And I have a great team working with me of expertise, and they bring various perspectives. They're from various different colleges. I have Shirley Ann Garage, Bianca Breinstein, Sarah Brownwell, Erin Carter-Jordan, Leah Gerber, and Stephanie Lindquist, Kimberly Scott, Ashley Randall. And as I go through these names, you could see that they not only they have different there are different career levels, and they hold different positions. Some of them are more in the leadership position, some of them are more in the faculty position. And that is, like I said, again, we have a mosaic of voices and pathways, and we want to make sure that we represent everyone in this project in order to be able to be successful. And my team, the professional development team, we're leading Initiative 2. And the objective is to provide appropriate and accessible professional development and mentoring opportunities for STEM women and underrepresented groups, right? And we want to do it throughout the academic life course. But we're actually targeting faculty in the later stage. We're really trying to target faculty in the later stage because the research, the preliminary research, so before, when this grant, when I came part of this team, they had already done a set of work. They had already done a lot of the legwork. And one of the research that they did, the preliminary research, showed that is really at the later phase of the academic life course, where we really see that differences between women and as well as in other members, as well as members of underrepresented groups in STEM advancing. So we're going to try to target that group in many of our initiatives, while all the initiatives are going to impact in a positive way every single one of those nodes in that network, every single one of those career stages, right? And like I said, what is our approach? Our approach is to really create a digital enhanced professoriate. And what we mean by that is we actually to leverage on the digital platforms that we have here at ASU. And through Canvas, be able to enhance participation for individuals that otherwise would not be able to participate because either they have disabilities that inhibit them from participating, they might be actually traveling to meetings, or they might be actually doing field work that does not allow them to physically participate in training, and or it might be geographically dispersed for the same reason of collaborating nationally or internationally, right? And so we really want to offer a training that is just in time, that is quick, and it gives you strategies and ways to be able to overcome certain challenges, right? So we're trying to create professional development modules that actually address different learning modalities. That if you're more visual, it's going to address that. If you're someone that likes to just have something hard copy and read, it would be able to do that as well. And we're creating short videos, presentation, podcasts, and interactive workshops as well. And the key is to be able to help individuals at different critical points in their career path. Use the whole opportunity to mentor, not just in person, but to actually reach out in part and creating mentoring circles that exist online. And that's one of the things that we want to be able to do. So currently this year, and I think there's going to be different stages, as we do any initiative and as we collect information and data, and we analyze the data, we're going to be able to improve the next phase of initiatives, the next step. So it's not a static thing, not that once resources offered by KED and ASU Foundation. The resources are there where you are able to search and find experts in your area or in other areas to collaborate. The human resources that we have there, such as behavioral training and preventing sexual harassment and other things. And but in the professional development, right, we have that there's sporadic different resources, and we're trying to bring them all together. Right? And one of the things that I have highlighted here in red, because many of you probably don't know, is the membership that we have. And we have this year, we have a membership that ASU is paying for to be members of the National Center for Faculty Development and Diversity. And it's an online resource that has a lot of different resources for different career stages. And I encourage all of you to go in there and log in. You know, it has presentations. It also has every weekly announcements that sends you with reminders. And just take advantage of that opportunity. Right, going to register just to see what is there for you to offer. But in terms of other development, professional development resources that we have resources through the ASU Commission on Status of Women, the Faculty Women Association, the Committee Campus and Inclusion, ASU Leadership Academy, Faculty Women of Color Caucus. And for all those, we have resources that many of them are workshops, in-person workshops, but many of them get recorded. So we actually are accessing those recordings, and we're trying to be able to bring them, right, as well, or link them, and we're trying to make sure that we advertise them so people know about them. Right? In terms of teaching and focus resources, there's many of them, and we also have some for graduate students. So another intervention that we have, we have been calling it the bias reduction intervention, but in reality we're going to change the name of it, and we're going to call it something different, like the inclusivity mindset, right? That was something that Aaron Carr Jordan came up with, which is something that is much more inclusive and has a better kind of sun to it, right? And in there, we're really going to be focused, one of the outcomes that we want is to be able to increase bias awareness and reflection on our own bias, as well as the institutional bias that might exist within our unit or the groups that we operate under. And so to be able to help change that, right, and transform and stop any biases that is occurring on our presence, to be able to do something about it, right? So we're looking also at creating tools, expanding the reach of the 16 tools that are out there. Like I said, there's a lot of tools that are out there. In fact, we're working in collaboration with the Provost Office and working with the tools they have for bias, and as well as the human resources, and leverage from them so that we could expand the reach. But also if there's any gaps or any things that are not there, that we could create something to address that. And our goal is that to be able to have more diverse hires, not just as faculty hires, but any other type of professional hires. That's really, but this intervention, well, is really directly going to affect this set of groups, the ones that are circled in red. I'm sorry, I'm using the other one, but this set of groups is really going to trigger down to every single aspect here, and including in leadership. And the way we're defining leadership in our case is very broadly defined. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're an administrator, but you might be a leader in service, in your community. You might be a leader in research or in teaching. And we want to be able to impact those people that are in there as well. And it's going to trigger down to it there. We also are collecting external resources to be able to help us have more things available to serve the faculty. And one of the interventions that's actually launched already is this Associate to Full Intervention online mentoring group. And we're having a pilot where at this time we're doing it through Google Docs. And the main goal is to be able to document the process and curate, all this process in real time, so that we could identify gaps and we could form a successful peer group for individuals that are going through this critical transition. And this group will include all campuses. It will be a cross-section of ASU, representing all different areas, in particular areas that are very interdisciplinary as well. And to be able to document the challenges, but not just by the individual, but also by their directors, right? Is there questions that are not being answered? And to be able to create a bank of advice and resources that could address those questions for future individuals that are going into this process. And the last thing that we're looking at is the leadership initiative, right? And this is really leveraging from what's out there, from what new EPED has done with her leadership program, to be able to partner with her and be able to create something that, even if it's just a pilot, to bring it to life, and bring it to life in just in time, small videos and resources with all the strategies and the basic things that you need for different things, right? To be able to provide an opportunity for everyone. Right now we have certain in-person leadership development opportunities, but we don't have them in the environment that we would like to have it, so that we could make it available for everyone. And the goal is to create structures that can, like I said, that could be just-in-time training for all faculty, influence the reach and the design of the future development training for leadership in ASU, capitalize on the wealth of leadership experience. So we're also interviewing different leaders at ASU and getting their advice and their perspective and their challenges, so that we could learn from them. And from the in-person opportunities, we also want to learn, and we want to be able to expand them, right, to everyone, and make sure that women and underrepresented minorities are included. So that's one of the things that we're doing. And this is just for this year. So this is just the beginning. And that advanced grant, what I realized is that it's really a collaborative effort. We really need everyone on the ground and in different positions to be able to help us, because it's really about leveraging about the resources that are out there. There's not much resources to do all the great things that we want to do, so it's really leveraging and building partnerships. And if you want to be part of this at any level, you have ideas, please sign your name on the sheet that is going around, and we'll be happy to contact you, or if you have any questions. We have our website, right, where you could also find more information. You could find the plans and even the proposal there. And we also are on Facebook and Twitter. So anything that we're doing, please tweet it, because the only way that I realize the way Twitter works is the more you tweet, the more likes you get. I don't tweet, I just read, so I don't get any likes. So please start tweeting us anything that you hear that Advance is doing and related to promoting faculty in STEM, or women, or just faculty in general. Tweet us, please. So, and this is pretty much my presentation. Thank you to the organizers of Equity Exchange, and thank you to all of you who came from different campuses. ASU West is a beautiful place, and it's a rich place for collaboration. I encourage you to come. I take the bus at least twice a week to go to Tempe, and I'm about to start going to Poly. So I encourage you to do the same. You know, I let you camp in my office. Reach out to here so that we could really become this unified community, so that those dots that Dr. Steve Elliott presented, instead of being scattered, they can be more connected and more clustered. So thank you.